Alright, welcome back to Mutton Gaming. I'm the Mutton Gamer, and today we're going to be taking a look at Metroid Fusion. Now, not only was this the first Game Boy Advance game I ever played, but it was also the very first Metroid game I ever played. Now, I didn't beat it when I was a kid, I beat it when I was older, but I still remember sitting on that living room couch where the lamp was positioned just right, so I could play the game with perfect lighting, but still not have that reflection off of it. But now we live in this crazy world of backlit screens, so does the game still hold up? Well, let's answer that question together, shall we? The narrative is a little more complex than previous Metroid games, but let's just summarize. It's directly after Metroid Other... Oh, sorry, I still almost throw up when I remember that game. I'll just call it MOM for short. Metroid Fusion comes after MOM in the timeline. And this is effectively the end of the Metroid timeline as well, as no sequels have been made for this game. And yes, I blame Metroid Prime for that. Anyhow, Samus has been hired to escort Galactic Federation scientists on planet SR388, which Samus had previously visited to eradicate the entire Metroid species. While there, a gelatinous blob is forced out of a creature and attaches itself to Samus. She was seemingly fine after that, and so after the scientists gathered what species they needed to study, Samus decided to go on her merry way. That's when she suffered some kind of trauma. I don't know if it was a heart attack or what, but it made her lose control of her ship, and it crashed into an asteroid belt. Luckily, the ship's auto-ejection function got her out before the crash, and the Biologic Space Laboratories team rescued her. It turns out that the gelatinous blob was a parasite that compromised her nervous system. Not only that, but it began corrupting pieces of her power suit, causing the scientists to surgically remove the pieces. However, a cure for the parasite was found in a cell culture preserved from the baby Metroid from Metroid 2 and Super Metroid. It would seem that the Metroid were the natural predator of the parasites, now dubbed X-parasites. And the vaccine made from Metroid cells fixed Samus almost immediately. See kids, this is why you shouldn't try to make a species go extinct just because you don't like it. It might just save your life from its natural prey someday. The GF then gave Samus a ship under the condition that she would take orders from an AI commanding officer, which she wasn't exactly happy about. And it reminded her of Adam, who died in MOM. No, it's not a spoiler, put your hand down. It might seem like a spoiler for that game, but since Adam dying was established in the opening cutscene of this game, and it's integral to the plot, it's not a spoiler. Besides, after the game became the only game on my show to ever be given a failing grade, were you really ever going to get around to playing MOM for yourself? I thought not. Getting back to this story, a distress signal is sent out from the BSL ship, and Samus goes there to discover that the specimens brought back from SR388 were X-hosts. And not only do the X-parasites kill their host, but they take on the form and the abilities of their host. Samus learns that, thanks to the Metroid DNA inside her from the vaccine, she is now immune to the X-parasites in their gelatinous form, and she can absorb them to help her gain back her own strength. As she fights the larger X-cores that transformed into bigger monsters and absorbs them, she takes in their powers and adds them to her arsenal, taking back her strength she had before she lost the larger pieces of her power suit. Not only that, but the GF has been working on upgrades for the suit that she can download and gain back more power that way. Now Samus, under the orders of her AICO, is sent to explore the facility, find a way to eradicate the X-parasites, and keep the BSL under control. It won't be easy though. Not just because of her weakened state, or the big beasties found in the different habitats, but because the SAX, the parasite that infected her and was surgically removed with the suit, has taken Samus's form and is hunting her down. Overall, the narrative is pretty extensive. Anybody that claims that the problem with MOM is that it has too much story obviously doesn't remember this game. This game had tons of story between the cutscenes, the AICO telling you what to do all the time, and Samus's monologues. Yeah, there's elevator time when Samus monologues to herself, and it gets pretty annoying. Yes, it's more bearable than MOM's story, but you have to recognize that people saying that this is their favorite Metroid title is probably a part of what brought that narrative to MOM in the first place. People liking a talkative Samus and dialogue that isn't from Samus. Let's move right along to the aesthetics. The differences in the environments are pretty amazing and set up great distinctions between the basic areas of the ship and the simulations for the specimens on the ship, from deserts to caves. Samus has undergone a redesign with her suit looking more organic, reflecting the loss of basic functions. It starts off slender with little protection, then as you progress and get new armor upgrades, what appears to be veins grow, almost making it look like muscle mass. Enemies from older Metroid games appear as well, including some long forgotten from Metroid 2. The color palette they went through is pretty good for them as well, and their designs make them look like plausible creatures in real life. And I love how the X-Parasites look and feel like they're 3D models even though they're sprite-based. The shading and animation on them was done spectacularly. The overall palette of the game, however, is fairly bright. Metroid, to me at least, is meant to be a dark, lonely experience. It's meant to unnerve you, but you choose to explore forward anyway. Yes, there should be times when the color becomes brighter to lighten things up, but they're meant to be highlights, not the whole game. It would also help the lonely atmosphere if your AICO didn't keep talking to you at the start of every level. You never really feel alone against a horde of enemies, and it just hurts the game. The music is really good though, the track's remastered and the original score. I remember the melody lines, and the music overall is mixed nicely. The music is triumphant, threatening, and atmospheric as the game needs it to be, and it's the best part of the aesthetics. But let's move along to the gameplay. The control feel is tight, the weapons are simple to use, and it controls on a 2D plane because it's on the Game Boy Advance, and almost every GBA game worth talking about was 2D. What do you want me to say? It's a Metroid game! Alright, I guess I'll expand. The game focuses on exploration to achieve growth. You see, you start off fairly weak, but you explore to get stronger and better at the combat, with upgrades including stronger armor, more health, better lasers, more and stronger missiles and bombs. While the game may look combat-oriented on the surface, it's really not. Even going back to the older Metroid games, it wasn't about killing the enemies because killing enemies wasn't as fun. What was fun was hearing the jingle and finding your weapon and then learning what it does. Even after that, the weapons usually had a secondary benefit for exploration. Bombs and missiles, destroy certain blocks. Ice weapons, freeze enemies. Boots, jump higher. The gravity suit, not be slowed by water. Not every power-up needed to be able to kill enemies. This is what MOM and other Metroid titles seem to have forgotten in this combat game-oriented industry. Metroid is 1 part combat, 1 part finding items, and 2 parts exploration. But I digress. The attacks of enemies are varied, and you have to figure out the best strategy to take them down. Do you wail on them with your blaster? Do you shoot as many missiles as possible? Do you charge your beam to get a maximum attack that will also hit them if you do a somersault? It's yours to decide. I also like the ideas on how enemies proceed to get stronger. And I don't just mean that enemies get tougher as you go through the game. A stray X-Parasite can latch onto another to make the creature grow into a mutated, stronger foe. The only thing I didn't like about it was the fact that if you killed it, it should be dead, not mutate into something stronger. That's what bosses should do, not the enemies you run into regularly. The enemies should have been the strong versions from the get-go if you were going to do that. It just feels cheap when the game says, "Yeah, you beat the baddie! Oh no, wait, he's even stronger than before!" This gets especially annoying in one particular room where you have to kill a bunch of wall-crawling, acid-drooling things with power bombs, then let them transform into the gold space pirates and shoot those in the back with a few fully charged power beam shots. And the door won't open until you do that. Why not just start us off with the gold space pirates? Would that make too much sense? Something else I liked was subtle, like when you first enter the jungle area, you kill these caterpillar things. After you beat the boss there, they go into cocoons and you can jump on them safely. When you return later, they've metamorphosed into bugs that do a lot of damage. This is a great example of enemy growth that I think more games should do if they're going to make you backtrack anyways. After you kill an enemy, it will break into 1 or more X-Parasites, and then the parasites come in a few different flavors. Yellow restores 10 HP. Green restores a couple missiles. Red restores 500 HP, 50 missiles, and 10 power bombs. Blue is frozen, and with your Metroid DNA, they can kinda sorta hurt you bad. However, once you get the Vario suit to survive extreme temperatures, they will restore 30 HP. The X cores not only have the same effect as the red parasites, but they also give you a certain ability. How do you find an X core? First, you have to fight a boss. This can either be really easy or really hard, depending on the boss itself. After that, the X core is released, and you have to hit it with missiles a few times until the X is out of its shell. Then you absorb it and get the power. If it's a laser X core, though, then you can only shoot it when it opens a hole that it plans to shoot you out of. The hardest boss by far is the SAX. Until you actually get to fight it, you have to run away from it, and it will do massive damage to you and kill you faster than the Flash on speed in a race car. And when you do fight it, it will mess you up unless you do this little trick. Stand here, charge the beam, and shoot while it's in firing range. Seriously, I did this and got out with no HP loss. Some call it cheap or cheating. I call it the developers should have thought more about the AI of this boss. If you're wondering why earlier I said that Metroid wasn't combat-oriented, but then I just went on this huge thing involving the combat, that would be because the exploration in the game is fairly limited. See, you're strictly told where to go half the time by the CEO AI, and it gets annoying. The game makes up some reasons as to why it doesn't know where to point you sometimes, but the only exploration is for items or secret passages. And while there are a lot of passages, everything else is seen on the map that you're given of the area from the get-go. I kind of prefer the later game's Zero Mission system better, where it gives you a general direction but no map until you've explored a decent portion of the area. And when it does give you a map, it's either because the game was too confusing in the first place, or because it wants to intimidate you with its size. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. Developers, please take my ideas. I've said something similar to this before, but Shigeru Miyamoto allegedly wants people's opinions on what kind of Metroid game to have next, a 2D one or a 3D one. Well, many people claim that Metroid Prime style is best, and I respect the right to their opinions, no matter how dumb or blinded by nostalgia they are. I'm going to throw my hat into the ring again. Make a 2.5D Metroid game with the vast, open map of Super Metroid, where you can explore to your heart's content and even find shortcuts to places you weren't supposed to get to yet. However, given how dated Super Metroid's control is, give it the control of the Game Boy Advance games, specifically Zero Mission, so wall jumping will let you move back on the same wall you just jumped from. Whether it's a remake of Super Metroid or a sequel to Fusion, I don't even care anymore. But let us pick between using the D-pad for movement or the analog stick for movement. Precise platforming like Metroid needs a D-pad. And let us customize the button layout like you did in Super Metroid. You know, despite all the problems, this game is above average. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a B. I mean, compare it to other Metroid games like Super Metroid or Zero Mission, and yeah, it's not as good as them, but it is certainly better than MOM, and while it's not exactly hard to do that, I'm fairly certain that this game did influence some of the things we don't like in MOM. Alright, that's it, and I'll see you guys next week.
Hey, if you liked my video, then why not throw me a like, a comment, and subscribe to my channel. And while you're commenting, suggest a game for me to critique sometime later.